In 1694, a group of bankers told the King of England, "Give us the monopoly on creating money, and in return we will finance your war." The king accepted. The Bank of England, founded that day, planted the seeds of a system that would become the greatest power in history. Because money does not speak, history does. And history teaches us this: control of money is more powerful than control of governments. Why doesn't your salary suffice today? Why can't you buy a home? Why are your savings eroding? The answer is not politicians. The real power lies in rooms you've never voted in, faces you have never seen. Central banks are the invisible rulers of the modern world, and you may not even be aware of their existence. England in 1694 was devastated by war, its treasury empty. A solution was found. A private bank would lend to the state, and in return receive the right to print money. This agreement changed not only England, but the entire global financial system. This was the birth of modern central banking. Not as a stabilizer, but as the creditor of the state. And over time, this power multiplied. In the 19th century, similar models spread across Europe. Private companies controlled money with state-granted privileges. They printed money. They managed reserves. They rescued governments. And in return, they gained extraordinary influence without any democratic oversight. Money does not speak. History does. And history shows us that central banks were never created to serve the public. They were created to protect the system. In the United States, there was resistance to this power. Americans feared centralized financial authority. The first two central banks were shut down amid corruption and elitism scandals. For much of the 19th century, the U.S. lived without a central bank. The result? Financial anarchy. Private banknotes, rampant speculation, and recurring panics. Then came the crisis of 1907. It was so severe that private financier J.P. Morgan personally had to coordinate the rescue. Resistance was broken. In 1913, Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act. It was sold to the public as a local, decentralized system. In practice, a centralized authority with immense power over interest rates, credit, and money supply was born. And this is where the story becomes blurred. The Federal Reserve is not a government institution. It is a hybrid of public and private elements, an independent entity. Its board is appointed by the president, but its member banks are privately owned. It is funded not by taxes, but by interest on government debt and fees charged to banks. So who does it serve? Officially, the Fed has two mandates: maximum employment and price stability. Unofficially, its actions serve the interests of the institutions it is supposed to regulate. During the 2008 crisis, the Fed did not just cut interest rates. It printed trillions, bailed out investment banks, supported asset prices, and guaranteed toxic debt. In 2020, it did the same again. It bought corporate bonds, injected liquidity into markets, and inflated asset bubbles that made the wealthy even wealthier. The system works like this. When rates fall, stocks soar. When tightening begins, markets crash. When money is printed, asset owners get richer. When rates rise, the working class pays more. And claims of independence are empty words. Central bank leaders move in and out of investment banks. Their policies reflect Wall Street's interests. Their language is deliberately vague, wrapped in technical jargon, keeping the public in the dark. Money does not speak. History does. And history shows who this system was built for. Today, central banks are more powerful and less accountable than ever. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England. These are not neutral institutions. They are the architects of our monetary reality. Since 2008, they have reshaped the economy beyond recognition. Low interest rates became the norm. Quantitative easing, once unthinkable, became routine. Trillions were printed. Government bonds, corporate debt, even mortgage-backed securities were purchased. The result? Asset prices exploded. Stocks, real estate, commodities. A golden age for asset owners. For everyone else? Inflation disguised as prosperity. Housing became inaccessible. Stock markets detached from wages. The cost of living rose while savings earned nothing. And most people didn't know why. They blamed politicians, immigrants, bad luck. But they never saw the invisible hand steering the money supply. The hard truth is this. The modern financial system was not designed to free you, but to keep you moving. Central banks grease the wheels of consumption. They reward debt. They punish saving. They manipulate rates, control narratives, and move trillions with keystrokes. And every meeting, every press conference, every emergency intervention is framed as stability. But it is not your stability that is being protected. The game is simple. When things break, the central bank steps in to save the system, not people. The system, banks, asset owners, the machine. Look at 2020. The COVID crash triggered the fastest market collapse in history. Within weeks, the Federal Reserve unleashed over $3 trillion in new liquidity. Stocks rebounded. Billionaires doubled their wealth. But millions of workers lost their jobs. Small businesses died. Tenants faced eviction. The economy wasn't saved. An illusion of power was. When central banks distort the price of money, they distort everything. They make risk impossible to price. They make saving and retirement unattainable. They inflate bubbles. They trigger crashes. They create a roller coaster economy where real wealth is unstable and paper gains vanish overnight. And the worst part, they strip you of agency. Most people don't even realize they are affected. They don't know that the interest on their student loans, the return on their savings, the price of their home are all determined by decisions made in rooms they will never enter, by people they will never vote for. Who controls central banks? Officially, they are independent. In practice, they serve the system that created them. Banks, markets, the entrenched financial class. The revolving door between Wall Street and central banking is not a conspiracy theory. It's a resume pipeline. Financial education isn't just about budgeting or investing. It's about power. About understanding that money isn't neutral, inflation isn't random, and interest rates are political. Freedom requires understanding the system and stepping outside its traps. That may mean holding assets that cannot be printed, building income streams not tied to debt cycles, challenging the idea that prosperity only comes from growth. Because growth fueled by endless debt and constant consumption is a treadmill, and the faster it spins, the harder it is to step off. First, see clearly. Central banks are not gods. They are players. Their tools, interest rates, liquidity injections, asset purchases, were not designed with your freedom in mind. They were designed to stabilize markets, protect institutions, and preserve the architecture of a fragile debt-fueled economy. You cannot fight this system head-on. But you can position yourself outside its blast radius. Diversify, simplify, reduce leverage, own meaningful things, learn how money works, teach others, question narratives. Because when the next crisis comes, and it will, the central bank will do what it always does, protect the system. Protecting yourself is up to you. History has all the answers. You just have to look in the right place. Money does not speak. History does.